Hi everyone, delonewolf here and welcome back to EVE Talk, your weekly look at the market in EVE Online. Today's EVE Talk is with 100% lower local, because for some reason GTA local is broken. I'm not even sure that that's a bad thing, but it's definitely still a problem with chat in EVE Online. On other quick information that I really liked, of course, we have a new video from the scope about the destruction of the first keep star that was ever deployed in New Eden, well, in wormhole space actually, by Hard Knocks. So that is definitely a video worth watching. There's also a new EVE Pulse that teases the event that is coming next week. I'm really curious about it. I took a couple of quick looks on CC, but I haven't found any information that it's deployed there. So it's going to be a complete surprise. We'll see what that is all about. And then on the lore front, what I really like is that we are having a Minmatar centered story for once, where the Minmatar are actually blockading certain systems between themselves and Amarr because of the treatment of Minmatar slaves in the Amarr Empire, of course. So we'll see where that story leads. Sounds like it could have some pretty interesting potential. This is of course also the holiday seasons, so we are getting gifts every single day for logging in after downtime. Definitely something that you should try to keep up with. It's what I'm doing at the moment for sure. And to my surprise, that might mean that we are not seeing lots of sales. So let's quickly jump into the New Eden store, and you can see here we've got some new skins for the Triglavian ships. They actually look pretty nice and are affordable. Look at that, 55 plex only for the Blackfire steel skins. I think that they look quite nice and shiny. I love the Kikimora, I must say. The Rodiva and the Zarmast are also really awesome looking ships. And then down here we also have some hidden Hadean horror skins, which I think look worse than the Blackfire steel skins, but cost almost 5 times as much. And so get some bundles and things like that as well, but no massive sales or anything like that to detect on the New Eden store this week. So we are going to jump in on the market then without local. Yep, that's definitely a change of pace. As always, we'll start with plex and stuff, and that's going to be at 2 minutes 30. Like that. And if we start with plex, then we'll go straight to the chart and look at that plex sale over. The market has absorbed all of that cheap plex, and we are back where we started from. Almost year to year, Jesus, excuse me, almost year to year we are back where we started at practically 3.4 million ISK, and basically a whole downswing here until the summer, until late summer in fact, is what we saw. So this is really something that you have to keep in mind at this point. If you expect this to be a wavy movement that comes back every year, which it doesn't always do that, but it does quite often, then this is starting to look like a potential sell opportunity. Perhaps you could wait a little bit longer. I would personally wait a little bit longer, because if plex has enough momentum, it might actually go to a new high point, and that's where I would put up a sell order if that's what you're planning to do. If we look at the sellers and buyers, 3,352,000 ISK in the player-owned trade hubs. Buyers coming in at almost 3.3 million as well. Very narrow margin on the upswing. If this has momentum, then of course we will go up in price to a new one-year high, and I would call that a sell opportunity. The only factor here that is that's a little bit of an unknown is of course that CP is planning another Unholy Rage, and Unholy Rage could go either way. It could drive the supply of plex down, but also the demand of plex down significantly, because of course botters tend to plex their accounts. So it'll generally drive the supply of plex of ISK down, which should make the rest of the ISK that's in the game more valuable. That could be an upwards pressure, but at the same time, as I've said, demand for plex might actually go down. And I think someone already mentioned that last time the skill injector market actually decreased in price substantially. So from that perspective, it might be the downtrend that will win out. So at this point, yeah, I don't think CCP is going to announce when Unholy Rage is going to hit. So if you're planning to do a sale of plex, I would say keep a very close eye on the plex market. Next up, you have the multiple pilot trading certificates flattening off at this point. That's a little bit surprising, but perhaps not if you look at the massive volumes that are being traded all of a sudden. We do have an increase in price, but these volumes are still higher than what you would normally see, and thus there is bound to be more multiple pilot trading certificates in the market at the moment than normally, and so the price doesn't reach the former highs that quickly. We're talking about 1.2 billion almost for the sellers and a little bit above 1.1 billion for the buyers. Again, very narrow margin between these two. Next up, the skill extractors, same thing as with plex, and again here as well, if you look at the early start of the year or about a year ago, we are almost at 400 million ISK. We're not there yet, but if this has enough momentum, we might actually recreate that peak. 375 million for the sellers, 368.4 million for the buyers. Again, look at that narrow margin on the upswing after the sale has been absorbed. Then we have the skill injectors. As always, we'll start with the large skill injectors, reaching very close to 1 year high. This time we are in tandem with, well, a very different chart from plex, a very strong performance in the first half of the year, holding on to 800 million ISK or very close to that. Then we finally have the breakdown after the plex decrease in price finally showed up here. Went to a low of 700 million ISK, which was obviously a buy opportunity, and I hope that you took advantage of that, because now you are once again selling them for 825 million ISK. That's maybe close to an all-time high, and the buyers are coming in at 800 million ISK. And then of course it's the same story here. Be careful of Unholy Rage 2.0 that CCP is planning. A massive ban wave of bots will have its effect on the market, but it's still unpredictable exactly what effect that is going to be. But this is a massive increase in less than 2 months. This is a very nice profit that was pretty easy to take if you bought those large skill injectors at the right time. And I think that we could have done so because we had several months where we kept staying at that low price. It felt a little bit risky to me because I didn't understand the delay between the decrease in plex prices and the decrease in the large scale injectors, but that has been explained very nicely by one of you guys. It's the multiple pilot trading certificates that went on sale so much that basically the skill farms had really cheap extractors available to, and really cheap trading time available to them, and thus as a result there was a much more stable injector market that did not have to worry about what plex was doing at the time, because their skill point farms, they just kept going and kept going, and as a result we had this delayed reaction in the large scale injector market. But now that plex is gone back up, so have the large scale injectors, and so the normal ratio has once again been reached with, well, an awesome trade that could have been made in just 2 months here. For the small skill injector next, we have the same thing, actually really reaching a 1 year high point. Oh, another thing maybe for the large skill injectors, quick note of course that the final gifts for the 13-day gifts from CCP is also a unique item that is going to allow you to use 3 large skill injectors for their full potential, no matter how many skill points you have. And so that's the full 500,000 skill points. Yeah, that you'll get. A lot of Omega players will probably try to take advantage of that as well, pushing the price up. For the small skill injectors, as I've said here, we didn't go above 170 million before, now selling at 172 million ISK, buyers coming in at 164. A very same pattern here. Very long delay until we finally broke 160 million ISK. Then we went down to 140, and now you're selling at 173. Very nice trade again in about 2 months time, and a very prolonged ability to buy in very cheaply on these small skill injectors. Very cool stuff actually. The daily alpha injectors, after reaching a 1 year high point of 62.5 million early November, had the same sale here, massive drop to less than 50 million ISK. That was definitely a good time to buy, but a bit of a delay here on the increase in price. It's not as volatile as plex, and as a result we are only up to 53.5 million for the sellers and 50 million still for the buyers. Still, I think that if you bought here for 50 million or below 50 million, that you have made a pretty good purchase, and that eventually eventually you'll be able to sell that for 60 million. You just need a little bit of patience on that. So here, yeah, I do wonder what you guys think, and perhaps you guys can still remember the previous holiday seasons. Does CCP come out with plex sales and things like that, or is it the gifts that are meant to make this special and are meant to bring players back into the game for the holiday seasons? I'm not exactly sure myself, and I'm starting to doubt that we will see big sales on the New Eden store and for plex for the holiday seasons because of the daily gifts during 2 weeks that we are getting. So can be very interesting information depending on what CCP has done in the previous years, of course. Next up, we're moving to minerals at 1035. Like that. And for titanium, I thought we would be going back up because I did see sellers go up a little bit in price, but no. On the chart, we are definitely still at 1 year low points for less than 4.5 ISK on average. So if we go for the system filter, 446, one small seller, and most are at 464. Buyers coming in at 435 though, which means that because of the large volumes here, still 1.5 billion, almost 1.3 billion. That's a lot of titanium still flowing to the market. It's actually the buyers that are often winning out, and people with less patience just sell straight to at 435. 434, and as a result you get an average price of less than 4.5 ISK, despite the fact that sellers are actually up in price a little bit from last week. So it's an opening up of the margin, but it's really very, very low at the moment, and we are talking 1 year low prices or very close to that for titanium. Very unfortunate, an exact reverse situation from plex, of course, starting low most of the year, up a little bit from that with a nice spike in August, and now back to that low point. For pyrite, it's even worse news, of course. We are continuing to build on those low points here as well, heading towards 3 ISK at this point, 3.1 for the sellers and 303 for the buyers. Super low, and even here at around 3.3 you still have like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 billion units that are being brought to the market. So pyrite massively oversupplied because of the mineral changes, the mining changes, and everything else in the game at the moment. As a result, 1 year low point. Is this an investment? To be honest, it's mostly a side product. And if you're looking for potential profits, you should look at those that have done better over the last year or so. So titanium is often a bottleneck. And then the next one that we want to check, Mexilon, same thing here, still holding to 70 to 80 ISK for most of the year, but finally now coming under pressure and reaching those 1 year lows as well. 57.24 for the sellers and 55.2 ISK for the buyers. Also super cheap, but definitely I think a less risky investment and a less long-term investment than something like pyrite, because it is an elastic bottleneck. We can see that from the spikes. Pyrite has basically gone straight down for a whole year, whereas Mexilon has been able to maintain that price of 70 ISK for a long time. So there's a better chance, I think, if a big Gnostic war, something like that, were to happen with lots of capital destruction, I think there's a better chance to make a profit on Mexilon than on pyrite. My personal idea with the market in this situation is that I just don't sell, but I build up stocks for a better time. Isogen is actually up a little bit for the week, up above 15 ISK though. So this, just like pyrite, tends to be a side product of mining that is so oversupplied that nobody really cares about it. 16.75 for the sellers, 15.17 for the buyers. Super low as well, no real upswings on this one, and landing at around 15 ISK at this point. For Noxium, also one that is still actually doing okay for the entire year, again managing to stave off the 300 ISK. That's actually pretty damn nice, and currently selling for 311 ISK. Buyers coming in at 296.05. Bit of a margin, decent supplies here though, 16 million, 28 million, 12 million. These are quite decent volumes, but Noxium is holding strong to the average price for the year, which historically is very bad. Noxium used to be like 1100 ISK and things like that before all of the changes to moons, to mining, to the mining ships and everything. But for the year, this one is actually doing quite okay. Less good news for the Nasdaq minerals. As we know, these have been completely gutted because of the new moon mining changes, making them available in 0.5 systems, and as a result we have this massive decline from 900 ISK to around 400 ISK, where we do have a little bit of a bounce here. So currently Zydrine is selling for 470 ISK, buyers coming in at 445, but it is really, historically speaking, a super low price here. So perhaps the market is not really willing to go below 400 ISK, but it is really wait and see at the moment when it comes to the first real upswing, where we would see a trade-worthy increase in price in Zydrine. Just not happening at the moment. For Megasite then, same story, landing at 375, bit of a bounce back up towards 500. At the tail end we are going back down though, 482 for the sellers, 437 for the buyers. So not much to say, that's just a straight line down as well because of moon mining. And then finally we also have Morphite that's actually reaching a really low point, 1 year low point at this point as well, below 8,000 ISK on the chart, 7,843 for the sellers, 7,613 for the buyers. If I were to make a buy, it would be for Morphite. The reason is, I think, pretty obvious. You can see from the spikes up to 12,000 ISK and the fact that it also held on quite a bit better over the entire year. That this is a different mineral. It is tied to the Tech 2 market, and so you don't need super capital or capital destruction in order for that to spike back up. You just need a big fight where some Tech 2 ships are lost, and that tends to be the case. Still, bomber fleets are often used, interceptors are still in. You also have the interdictors, always Tech 2, get primaried quite often, and so there's quite a good reason, I think, to if you want to make an investment in minerals, I would look at Morphite right now. Next up we have PI coming in at 1635. Like that, and here last week we had a bit of a comeback for advanced PI materials. The fuel materials were doing really well, but showing the first signs of decline, and then some of the others were actually very weak at the moment. So broadcast notes is back on its average of around 2.1 million ISK, a bit above that for the sellers, and just below 2 million for the buyers. That's actually still pretty cheap, but unless CCP comes out with more news on more structures, I would say the next ones might be the what are they called, propaganda towers, but you know, I haven't really heard anything about that anymore. Doesn't show up on updates or anything like that, so perhaps they are delaying that for something else, and at the moment it would not be a gamble that I would take. Broadcast notes buying for less than 2 million is not bad, but there's no real news in the works at the moment that is telling me that we could expect higher prices in the near future. Construction blocks next, as you can see, below average here, below 11,000 ISK. Just about 11,000 for the sellers, 10,100 for the buyers. Yeah, a bit lower than average at the moment. Consumer electronics, same story. Look at the first half of the year, 14k on average, no problem. Now 12 to 13k, so a bit below average at the moment as well. 12,800 for the sellers, 12,400 for the buyers. It's a bit below average, but it's still a doable price. Don't get me wrong, I wouldn't blame you for selling at the current prices. Next up we have coolants. Ooh, 1 year high, that is awesome to see. And then it's really surprising to see on the fuel ticker, it'll show up in a little bit, to see fuels at 1 year low points at this point. Less than 19,000 is for nitrogen fuel blocks is what I wrote down. And here coolants on a 1 year high point though was breaking through the 11,000 ISK barrier and looked like it was on its way down, but all of a sudden nice comeback, 11,800 ISK for the sellers, 11,400 ISK for the buyers. Awesome price. Definitely something to look into if you're new to PI. It's just a gas planet in order to make coolants, and you can make quite a lot of them. So very awesome to see this. Enriched uranium, same thing, was on its way back down to 13,000 ISK, but back up to 14k all of a sudden. 14,200 for the sellers, awesome price. 13,700 for the buyers. Incredible comeback all of a sudden. Completely not my expectation. Integrity response drones, a bit of more volatility because of the new structures, but now on its way back down to a less than average price. 2.3 million, a bit above that actually, for the sellers, and 2.1 million for the buyers. Again, I think that will just lower the volatility over time and will land at around 2.5 on average. At the moment though, a bit cheaper than that. Mechanical parts next, related to fuels, did break through the 11,000 ISK barrier, but is on its way back up as well. nice to see. 11,300 for the sellers, almost 11,000 ISK for the buyers. So a bit of a comeback this week for fuel related PI materials so far. Nuclear reactors, one of my investments, continuing to hover around 90,000 ISK, currently at 93,000 for the sellers and 82,000 for the buyers. Complete lack of demand in nuclear reactors. This is a very nice buy opportunity in my opinion. You can see that the potential highs are quite nice, 110, 120,000 ISK. And before that we've seen even better spikes, and so at the moment I think that nuclear reactors are well below average, especially on the buyer side of things, and thus worthy of investing in. Organic mortar applicators actually slowly going up in price to an above average price. 1.2 million for the sellers, 1.1 million for the buyers. So here you're paying a bit of a premium. Integrity response zones is the exact opposite. Robotics tied to fuels is actually pretty flat for the week, above 95,000 ISK. Yeah, around the average actually. 100,000 ISK, normal average price, but between 95 and 100,000 is nothing too crazy. So 97,500 for most sellers, 93,400 for the buyers. Yeah, buyers maybe a touch below average, but overall this is still an actual average price for robotics. Not bad at all for it to maintain that. Self-harmonizing power cores getting close to 1 year low point actually. Where are the buyers at? 2 million for the sellers, 1.9 million for the buyers. That is pretty cheap. That's below the entire chart for the buyers. Could be interesting, but again I don't expect massive increases in price in the near future unless CCP announces a new set of structures. Superconductors next, above average but under pressure it would seem, selling for 12,400, buyers at 11,200. I would actually put that at around an average price in general. Test cultures next, should be a bit above average, but how long can it maintain a price above 9,000 ISK? 9,500 for the first seller, most of them at 9,900, and the buyers at 9,500. Not bad, definitely above average, but I think the pressure will be on at this point. And finally we have the wetware mainframes, that is just a touch below average at the moment. 2.4 million for the sellers, 2.2 million for the buyers. So PI, really surprised by coolants. Look at that chart, complete breakout all of a sudden, and enriched uranium actually coming back to 14k as well. Not bad at all. Definitely another strong week for fuel related PI materials. Next up we have the advanced move materials at 2220. Like that, and let's take a look at these. We've got the crystalline carbonites flat for the week, pretty much just below 175. That's not good news for people looking to buy or sell. I think when the chart touches 150 you can try to buy, but at the moment, yeah, 173 for the sellers, 165, 166 for the buyers. That is not a buy opportunity and not a sell opportunity yet either. Ferrite carbide, same picture, tried to break out just a little bit, went to 173, is now going back down, but are we at buyers below 150? No, 153 for the buyers, 165 to 170 for the sellers. That's same situation, not yet a buy opportunity. Perhaps it's in the making, but we will see. Definitely not a breakout. For the titanium carbides, same picture again, went up to 200 ISK, needs to give back a little bit from that, but if we see buyers for less than 150, that's where we can try to buy some. So 196 for the sellers. If you bought below 150, that's not bad, right? Almost 25% increase in price. That's a small trade to be made, but it's still buying at 188 at the moment, so that's definitely too early. So you could have bought here in mid-October for probably a little bit less than 150. Then that's a small trade to make, but it's really hard. The volatility should be higher for that, in my opinion. So now I'm mostly just looking for those buy orders, like here, very pronounced in tungsten carbide. When you dip below 175, try to grab some of it. You can see on the volume spikes that there are people that do that. But now we are back right on the average price. 221 for the sellers, 210 for the buyers. That is in the middle of no man's land. Not very interesting, unfortunately. Let's take a look at the metamaterials next. Here are the photonic metamaterials. After going up in price to more than 20k, back down. not yet anywhere close to 1 year low point, so that's another no for me. 19,000 for the sellers, 18,400 for the buyers. Plasmonic metamaterials, same thing, right? That's the lows, these are the highs. We're very close to the lows, but not there at this point. 20,139 for the sellers, 18,900 for the buyers. Is that interesting? I don't think so. Next up, we have the non-linear metamaterials. Again, we get a couple of nice lows here when we went down to close to 20,000 ISK, but now we are again in the middle of everything on the averages. 26,500 for the sellers, 25,000 for the buyers. That's again right in the middle of things. 4.4 terahertz metamaterials, actually a small breakout. That is interesting. So here we had a couple of landings at 20,000 ISK. So you could have potentially bought these for less than 20k. I think I will have noted that. It's been a while, 1.5 months ago, but that will probably have been a buy opportunity that I must have noticed. And now, so buying for less than 20k, selling for 25,600. Look at that, quarter of the price increase. Not bad at all. 23,100 for the sellers, for the buyers, excuse me. Is, well, around average, maybe a touch above average on the seller side of things. So you could sell if you bought like late October for less than 20k, but otherwise it's very difficult to make trades happen with the current prices. We're right in the middle of things. Then we have the other advanced moon materials. We've got fermionic condensates continuing the decline back to a, well, normal price. If you look at the early chart here, around 90k. So that's back on an average as well. 87,700 for the sellers and 85,600 for buyers. Very narrow margin here, but yeah, less than 80k. I would say wait for a better, more pronounced buy opportunity. If you really need to, of course, look at this entire chart. That looks pretty damn good, but this spike might just have been because of the moon mining changes. So keep in mind that we did lose production for a while from bosses, and that had to be replaced by the new moon refineries, and as a result this spike is I think not the average price here. So we're just basically normalizing things at this point. I would wait for clear 1 year lows, even counting the first part of the chart, before jumping on these opportunities. So ferrogel is landing at less than 45,000 ISK, and I really don't like this. 44,500 for the sellers, 41,000 for the buyers. But look at the potential. We could go below 40k before I call it the buy opportunity. Fullerites, same thing here, right? 1,000 ISK on average. We went back to that. Now we're above that. But the low points, like less than 900 ISK, is what you need to reach. So here, maybe a small sell opportunity if you manage to buy here or here for close to 900 ISK. That could be okay, right? 11,140 for the sellers. Buyers at 1,050, but yeah, this is in between the entire chart yet again. Hypersynaptic fibers, same story, right? The high points 16, 17k, low points close to 10,000 ISK, and 13,000 for the sellers, 13,000 for the buyers. Right in the middle of things. Nanotransmitters, again, low point 4k, high point 7k. 5,000 ISK for the sellers, 5,000 ISK, pretty much 4,900 actually for the buyers. So this same thing here, we're basically landing at a price, we're absorbing this price spike here, but it's not yet a buy opportunity or anything like that. Phenolic composite starts to be more interesting after a late spike up to 3,250. In August, September is now declining in price quite quickly. We can see the 2,000 mark, I would say, as a definite buy opportunity. 2,240 for the sellers, 2,168 for the buyers. A bit early in my opinion, but one to keep an eye out for, I think. And then finally we have the ceramic fibers that after reaching a 1 year low point of less than 400 ISK were tradable for close to 600. That was not bad, but now we are back on the decline. 455 for the sellers, 407 for the buyers. That's almost interesting actually. I would again wait a little bit, but this is a buy order you could risk, right? Try to buy them for less than 410. Know that the potential for 600 definitely, or let's say 550 definitely exists. It's a nice little trade to try to make. I would wait myself, but I wouldn't blame you. So advanced moon materials, not in a great spot. I would say that we should keep an eye out for low points though. Next up we have the Tech 2 ships coming in at 29.15, let's say. like that. And well, with that pressure and that averages or bit below average for the advanced boom materials, I might expect a little bit of a comeback for the low ones and basically back towards average prices on most chips, and the Aries is bearing that out. Look at that, back above 30 million ish, 31 for the sellers, 27.5 for the buyers. Important for me, of course, I bought quite a few stealth bombers, quite a few, well, just a couple, but that's a trade that I'm trying to make. So for the Basilisk, same thing here, after reaching a 1 year low point, is now on its way back up. So if you manage to buy these for, let's say, 220, you're now selling them for 286, buyers coming in at 258. Biggest problem might be the volumes, 50, a bit less than that on average every day is hard to trade in, but if you bought 1 or 2, then that's definitely a nice little trade that you could have made here. At the moment, it's just basically a slightly above average price. Cerberus, same story here, right? If you bought them for 200 million ISK, you can now sell them for 290 million ISK. Buyers coming in at 242. Is this a crazy price? No, we've been here before for quite a while as well. But on average, it's a little bit above average yet again. So that's actually a nice little move up all of a sudden. The Crow is still very low, landing at 28 million, something like that, I think. Yeah, 29.4 for the sellers, 26 million for the buyers. Right in between that is 28 million. So buy order, perhaps. It's definitely at the low end of things. Know that it's both buyers and sellers that are winning out. So you are able to grab Crows at 26 million. Looking at this chart, it's below everything. Perhaps you could consider that. It's definitely below the entire chart, so I wouldn't blame you for that. Definitely not. The Guardian went back up to 250, so that's a nice little trade here from 200 to 250 million. Now has to give back a little bit of ground, so back to a less than average price, to 30 million for the sellers, 215 for the buyers. The Heretic, lovely little spike to 100 million ISK. Now, as expected, a pretty small one, you know, not a very large window to sell in. Currently back to 76.5 for the sellers, 66.5 for the buyers. Back to a normal price, I would say. The Hound continuing at a low point at this time, so this is where I've tried to buy. I think 25.2 is my buy order. Well, sellers up to 28, buyers up to 27.5, so we are perhaps, look at the volumes, nothing too crazy. Perhaps we are ready for an increase in a price here. I'm definitely ready with, as I've said, buying, I think at 25.2 million with a couple of hounds. For the Ishtar, trying to get back to the average, staying a little bit below that, but 262 million for the sellers, 244 the buyers. Is a normal price for the Ishtar, not at that low point anymore at all. Next up, we've got the Manticore. I'm not sure, Ticker, do I have Manticores? I do have Manticores at less than 28 million ISK. Currently selling for 32 million, buyers at 28.7 million. So up a little bit. Look at the volumes here, 12, 16, one of 59, but I would say that that is not too crazy. Look at the chart, we're at the low end, so I am ready for that spike. Next up, we've got the Munin, actually up again in price on really nice volumes, must be said, back to an above average price. So whenever this one breaks down to a less than average price, now we're at 267 for the sellers and 242 for the buyers. And so yeah, there's actually a bit of a margin opening up because of people buying up some Munins. That is quite nice. Not easy to trade. This is a little bit easier, right? If you go down to 220 million and then you can sell for 320 million. That's a very nice trade to make, but you can see that the volatility is decreasing and that we are hovering back on the averages at the moment. So the good times for the Munin might already be over, unless again Nullsec, if that explodes, that would be good. Again, Nemesis, yeah, bought for less than 25 million. So if we look at the chart here, nice little spike up, back up to 32 million for the sellers. I could make a little trade out of that. I'm going to wait for a general spike, I think. You know, I don't mind holding on to these guys for a little bit longer because the buyers are still at 25.8 million. So keep that in mind. I bought them for 24.5, so it's definitely up in price, but it's still quite affordable, I would say, at the moment. And then after the Nemesis, we've got the Oneros, 200 million. Yeah, still nothing too great for the Oneros. 207 for the sellers, 191 for the buyers. And the big problem here is, of course, the volumes. Then we've got the Purifier, which I did not pick up. I think Purifier, nope, but could have. Look at that, also a 1-year low point at 26.5 million, and now we are selling these for 33.8 million. Buyers coming in at 31 million ISK. So definitely a bit of a comeback in like the last couple of weeks for Tech 2 ships at the moment. And well, I grabbed a couple of stealth bombers, but there were more small trades to be made. The Saber is staying pretty low. Are we below 70 million on the sellers? No, 71 to 72 million for the sellers, but the buyers at 65 million. If you look at that on the chart, is definitely below everything. So if you're still looking for that Tech 2 investment, the Saber might still be it. Scimitar, after going up in price, is landing, but not yet at a 1-year low point. 235 for the sellers, 220 for the buyers, 220 for the buyers. Well, it's not a low point yet, so I would say no. And then finally we have the Stiletto that is staying below 30 million ISK. Are the buyers below 27? No, 28 million here, 29 million for the sellers. Still not really a go. So if you really want more buy opportunities, I would say the Saber, right? 65 million. That is not bad looking at the chart. And then the Crow is actually doing okay as well, with buyers coming in at 26 million as well. If you try to make that show up on the chart, you can clearly see that we are below everything here as well. But other than that, I am primed with my stealth bombers, and you can see that the comebacks have been happening. So you've got especially here the Cerberus, the Basilisk, nice comebacks. If that can materialize, and then we can have some destruction in nullsec, I think that these buy opportunities below the entire chart are something that we can take advantage of. But as always, be careful with the volumes. Don't go too crazy. Buy what you don't need when it comes to ISK, and also keep in mind if something like the Oneros, for instance, look like, oh, really nice. I think you could have bought these for close to 150 below the entire chart for sure. But look at this, if you buy 20-30 of them, you're gonna get stuck with them for sure. So always be careful with the volumes that you buy. Next up we have the Tech 3 ships coming in at 36.30. And cluster shutdown, so I still have 1 hour to complete this recording. Shouldn't be a problem. Let's get started. We know that Hard Knocks has been knocked out of wormhole space. Their Keepstar is down. An immediate impact on the Tech 3 market? I don't think so. Generally there are quite big stocks available, but for the longer term, perhaps this could bring more turmoil to wormhole space and thus more volatility in the price market for Tech 3 ships. So the Confessor is actually down a little bit in price, 38 million for the sellers, 33 million for the buyers. What we do see is that the volumes are not too crazy. So this is basically a little bit lower than last week, but the volumes are indicating that we might actually recover from that pretty quickly. And the Hecate is staying at 40 million. Here I am expecting a bit more in volumes, and we are 41 million for the sellers, 39 million, but we get 30 here, 40 here, 44 here. It's still nothing crazy. It's definitely not oversupplied, but you can see that for a Confessor that is selling below 30 million fresh production, well, here, look at that. That's actually quite a few selling all of a sudden. This could also be a Hard Knocks effect, of course, someone managing to get some stuff out and then just wanting to liquidate that, driving the price down a little bit on, well, nothing too crazy, but it's still, if all of this is from one person, which it's not because it's on different hours, but if all of this comes from, let's say, a Hard Knocks guy that made it out, then that's still 40-50 of them coming to the market driving this price down. But I fully expect that the Hecate being above 40 million, for instance, is more interesting for production, and that's why we see generally higher numbers for these. The Jackdaw went up to almost 47 million, and here that's obviously something that people try to take advantage of, because we are back down to less than 40 million is here. 38 million for the sellers, 35 for the buyers, and again 37, 40, 44. Last 24 hours, look at that, last 24 hours, more than a full front page of new Jackdaws trying to take advantage of these prices, and actually some extra as well, because here we've got 200 of them at 41, and then all of that keeps coming in the last couple of days. Might be a Hard Knocks effect that is driving this price down as well. Who knows, perhaps a short-term effect might be here with more supply. If you believe that to be true, then of course this would be the right time to look into buy orders whenever those are pretty low. So 35 million for the Jackdaw. What was that? Hecate. at 39 million, a bit high for my taste, but yeah, maybe Jackdaws at 35 million. If you try to make that come up on the chart, is not bad at all. You can see more supply that is driving this price potentially down. Yeah, that could be good if you expect that to be supply from Hard Knocks, and if you expect that to basically dry up eventually, then this could be a pretty good trade. And then finally we've got a Zwebel, also same thing here, back down a little bit. We're talking 35 million for the sellers, 32 million for the buyers in the last 24 hours. Nothing too crazy though. So this one is more of a bit of a market correction itself, although slightly higher volumes. So the destroyers here, I would say the Jackdaw, that looks interesting that you're buying them for very close to 35 million. You're seeing this massive supply in the last 24 hours. This could be a slight buy opportunity for the Jackdaw. On the cruiser front, we've got the Legion that is basically staying above 180 million ISK, 182 for the sellers, 166 for the buyers. And volume wise, I'm not seeing anything too crazy, except that in the last 24 hours we do have again a bit more sell orders coming in. Might also be loot, right? Might be loot from the Hard Knocks Keep store, where that finds its way to the market by the victors, from the hands of the victors, of course. Something that's definitely possible. Next up here we've got the Loki, back up in price towards 250. So what the hell? Back up in price towards 250 on the charts, but sellers coming in at 239, buyers coming in at 212. And here I think, yeah, that is definitely gonna be the Hard Knocks effect, because look at the last 24 hours. Full front page, all of these very close to one another in the last 24 hours. And we have to go here to get it to the 245, 240 plus, and then here all of a sudden quite a bit of competition trying to liquidate some of these extra Lokis, I think. Proteus also up in price a little bit, 170 for the sellers, 157 for the buyers. Same pattern here. Well, it's not that many. The Proteus is definitely out of the meta at the moment. And then finally we have the Tengu that is flat at 180. 167 now though for the sellers, 166 for the buyers. And look at the last few hours here, that's quite a few sell orders all of a sudden. So I would, yeah, and here again quite a bit in the last 24 hours. I would say that this could be supply either from Hard Knocks guys that got these ships out, or from the loot from the Keep store, of course. It's definitely a pattern that we've got quite a few sell orders all of a sudden in the last couple of hours, and definitely in the last 24 hours for Tech 3 ships. So I would say if that keeps up, you know, they're still blowing up more structures around there. If that keeps up, this is something to keep in mind, and that perhaps we'll see more stuff like here. If, for instance, they blow up another production structure and turns out it's got a couple of hundred Jackdaws, that might actually drive the price all of a sudden down to less than 35 million if all of that gets filled, and that's where we really have a nice buy opportunity. Will that happen? Difficult to say. Jackdaws, for instance, would be nice fleets for them to keep, but who knows, it is perhaps possible. Very interesting in the Tech 3 market here. I really think that if that happens, it would show the sandbox, right? Stuff blows up in wormhole space. It's a really big group that blows up in wormhole space, and then to see that impact on the market in the upcoming days and weeks could be very, very interesting. Something that is so unique to EVE Online, but definitely a lot of fun. And then for the extra product this week, at 43 minutes, there we go. I'll take a look at the Gecko. It's been a while, so let's go. Why the Gecko? It's something that is requested from time to time as well. It is a very unique item in the sense that you can't produce more of these. CCP gives those out from time to time as gifts, or during events as rewards and things like that, but there are no blueprints or anything like that for Geckos that you can get from NPCs or as drops or anything like that. And so as a result, it generally is up in price over the year, and year on year we're actually flat for the Gecko, with a couple of spikes with a very low volatility in the last few months or so. And what is the reason? I think that basically we would have that constant increase in price when geckos were usable by carriers. Then they would definitely be something that they use a lot, but now, yeah, the geckos is much more niche. I think it finds less use and definitely less risky use in nullsec. and as a result it is just not being destroyed at the rate that has any appreciable effect on the price. So the Gecko is selling for 89 million ISK, the buyers are coming in at 77 million ISK. You're buying Geckos for less than 80 million ISK. Is that a buy opportunity? Well, know that this is a very unique item, that if for some reason it comes back in the meta, gets destroyed in a large number, perhaps a fleet, you know, gets caught off guard, some ratters get caught off guard, and then you all of a sudden see more destruction of Geckos. The general trend is you can't replace them, thus they should go up in value. But you are dependent on CCP, of course, because it is one of those gifts that they do like to give from time to time as a result. Yeah, Gecko 77 million for the buyers is definitely well below the charts, and I think that those are pretty cheap. The real question is, of course, what you expect them to do over the next year, and that's a pretty big gamble to take. Then to finish off, because it's only one item, of course, I'll take a quick look at the ticker. So construction blocks, still trying to buy those for less than 10,000 ISK. You can see that on some median daily averages, we are getting close to that. So I think that the market is still hesitating. We also know that non-fuel PI is still doing sometimes below average, so I think it still potentially might get picked up. I'm keeping that sell order. Next up, we've got the crystalline carbonite. I bought for 146, so here I bought at the right time. Could sell for 172. I'm going to wait for a better spike. Fullerite, that was a completed trade and where I sold early, right? Bought for 839. Look at that on the charts, 839 below everything. Sold for 939, could have sold it for 1100 at this point. So here I was a bit impatient to make the trade. I should have sold at this point, of course. I would sell right now if I still have that trade lying around. Hounds bought for 25.2 million. We've seen that the buyers are up to 27.5 million. Sellers are still at 28, but look at the numbers here. Nothing too crazy for such a popular stealth bomber. I think that on any action, maybe stealth bomber bomber's bar loses a fleet or something like that, we could be in for a nice spike and a nice trade. So I'm taking those positions. Manticore for less than 28 million seems pretty damn good. Buyers are up to 28.7, and then the Nemesis bought for 24.5. I could sell right now for 32 million. I could take some profit. It's a nice spike, but look at the potential. If I could sell these for 35 million, 10 million profit on every Nemesis, that would be a good trade. I think I'll try to hold on for that at the moment. Then we get the nuclear reactors, which I bought for less than 90,000. It's at 87.5. Look at the lack of demand. It's even lower than last week, I think. Buyers at 82,000 ISK. I haven't put up an extra buy order, but I could definitely lower my average price by buying even more. And I would try now. If I hadn't bought these, I would probably put one up for like 83,000 ISK. Look at 83,000 ISK on the chart here. So low. Potential 100,000, 110 is definitely possible. That's a nice little trade, I think, in the making. Saber trying to buy for 64.9. Oh, I actually tried to buy a Saber. Did I buy it? Perhaps I did. I'm not exactly sure. Let's see if we still find. No, there it is. I'm still trying to buy that Saber at 64.9. I think, you know, it is one of the two ships this week that still looked pretty interesting. On the buyer side of things, unfortunately, we are getting competition on the upswing towards 65 million. Should I up my price? Perhaps I should, but if you could buy for less than 65, I think you've got a definite trade right there. Then we got Strontium. That is my terrible trade. I'm still keeping that here to show you guys that sometimes I make mistakes as well. I bought Strontium at 2,300 ISK and now it is worth 1,500 ISK. So let's hope that CCP brings back Strontium from the brink here, because it's not been a good year for the poor item. And then we get another final trade for tungsten carbide that I managed to make, 178 on buying, you know, pretty clear buy opportunity on the chart here. Sold for 219, currently selling for 221. So if you still bought these as well, you could try to make your profits. I think it's not bad. And quite surprised by tungsten carbide being this volatile here all of a sudden. So we took advantage of that one. More trades very visible. I would say no, maybe some more Tech 2 ships. Tech 3, yeah, perhaps, who knows. That might be interesting, especially the Jackdaw looked like it could be interesting if you grab them for 35 million ISK. But for this week, yeah, the general trend on the ticker is actually up a little bit in price, but not too big in percentages. And yeah, for plex, who knows, you know, I didn't pull the trigger on a daily alpha injector, something that I could probably have done. This is just me being lazy. I think that there are definitely opportunities there as well. And then plex, I would wait for perhaps a sell opportunity to be created there. But other than that, yeah, advanced materials, no minerals, feels a bit risky to jump in on that. PI, you know, fuel PIs is in such a good place to sell. I'm not really seeing enough volatility there. Yeah, take 2, take 3 ships perhaps, and that's where I'm taking my positions at the moment. And that's going to be it for this ETH Talk, guys. Thank you very much for watching, and as always, I'll see you next time.